Unfortunately, there have been some serious allegations against someone in the TYT network. His name is Sam Seder. He does the Majority Report. They found an old tweet of his where he tweeted this. He said about Roman Polanski. Remember, of course, there's terrible sexual assault allegations against Roman Polanski. And Seder said, "Don't care regarding Polanski," in a tweet from 2009. "But I hope if my daughter is ever raped, it is by an older, truly talented man with a great sense of mise en scène." Okay, so he not only is part of the TYT network, he's also an employee at MSNBC. He's a contributor for them. And MSNBC said, quote, an insider there to the press, "Internally, there was disgust over the tweet." Now, here's Seder's defense, which he had on the Majority Report. "This smear involves the willful misinterpretation of a tweet that I posted in 2009. I will never be ashamed of criticizing those who would excuse the predation of women or girls, and I certainly won't be quiet about Roy Moore or a conservative movement that would defend his actions so they can get his vote in the Senate." Okay, now, as you see there, he's a former MSNBC contributor because they, in essence, have fired him. So what are we going to do at the TYT network? Sam Seder, you are not fired. Get out of here, man. Are you kidding me? This is an attack by the alt-right, by an absolute, let me be careful with my adjectives here, a bad actor to say the least, as you're about to see. And he pretends to care about women and rape and then goes and stirs up the pot. It is incredibly weak and yes, pathetic of MSNBC of taking this action. Now look at the tweet. Was he talking about being in favor of Roman Polanski? No, the exact opposite. Really, you guys don't understand sarcasm at all? In fact, what Sam Seder was doing was attacking other liberals, which the alt-right should be thrilled about, who at the time in 2009 were now beginning to put on some defense of Roman Polanski, and non-liberals as well, of course. Even though he'd done the terrible sexual assault and rape actions and why he fled the country, some people were arguing, well, I mean, but he is such a great director, we should let him back in the country. And that is exactly what Sam Seder was making fun of, saying, no, I don't care that he's a great director. He was accused of rape and very legitimately, so legitimate that he ran out of the country and is a wanted fugitive. No, we should not allow him back in. So if you don't understand that, there's something wrong with you. You're not very bright. Now, the reality is almost everybody does understand that. The alt-right attacking him doesn't care about this issue at all, as I'm about to prove to you. And to me, what's particularly heinous, though, is the cowardice of the mainstream media. Look, if you've got a real story of allegations of sexual harassment, that is a completely different animal. And so that's a different matter and should be taken with the utmost seriousness. A joke where someone is against rape, but you let an alt-right guy pretend that he's in favor of it, what's wrong with you? And the reality is, I don't want any trouble, I don't want any trouble, I'm gonna call everything even. So who are they calling it even with? There's a number of people attacking Sam, but the ringleader is a guy named Mike Cernovich. I never talk about him because he's a troll and he is thrilled to be a troll. He tries to troll everybody, but apparently since the mainstream media is so blindingly stupid that they would take him seriously, we're gonna have to talk about him. So to give you some context on who he is, it has been 1 year, as Media points out, since Edgar Madison Welch infiltrated pizza shop Comet Ping Pong, armed with an AR-15 and a revolver after the Pizzagate conspiracy theory pushed by Cernovich and others spread around. So he's the guy who spread around the insane conspiracy theory that there was a pizza shop where the kids were being molested. You know who actually molested kids? Roy Moore, the guy that they support. So for MSNBC's so-called progressive network to come out and go, oh, the defenders of Roy Moore and his child molestation pretend to be concerned about a joke against rape from 2009, so I'm gonna fire the guy. It is beyond preposterous. Okay, so Cernovich put out an article. He does this all the time against so many people. At this late juncture, for them to be that much of a coward to give it to a guy like Cernovich is unreal. The title of the article was, MSNBC contributor Sam Seder endorses Polanski's sex crimes and now deleted tweet. Wait, what do you mean endorses? So I guess Mike Cernovich is preposterously stupid. One of the dumbest guys alive if he can't tell that's a joke. But the reality is, of course he knows it's a joke. but he pretends that it's not a joke to get to his goal. So in fact, he's obsessed with this topic. The topic being child molestation. He talks about it nonstop. Now to give you, hey, MSNBC executives, since you're stupid, let me fill you in on what Cernovich is about. He accuses almost everyone of pedophilia. Why? Because it's the dirtiest thing you could accuse anyone of. And this is what, and he trolls for a living. He's a right-wing monster. And you were leaning forward at some point. I guess I don't know what forward was and I don't know what leaning was. Now I guess you're leaning backwards, but you're giving in to guys like this. So let's take a look at the people that Cernovich is accused of being a pedophile. He says pedophile Podesta won't concede tonight, referring to the campaign chairman of Hillary Clinton, thought it was Trump who wouldn't concede election night. So apparently, for no reason, no facts at all, Podesta is a pedophile. Then we move on to Tim Kaine, the VP choice. Creepy Kaine really does have the look of a pedophile. Okay, nonstop. Then we go to Salon magazine, publishes an anti-rape article. Instead, Salon published pro-pedophilia article at his platform for pedophiles. Time to write quote unquote investors. Why do they fund a money-losing quote unquote company? It doesn't matter, he's gonna accuse everyone who's opposed to him of being a pedophile. That's what he does. And then he goes and stirs up the pot. Investors, advertisers, corporate executives, let's get them scared because they're stupid and they'll just react to us and actually support the people who are in favor of monstrous things that Roy Moore has done. And by the way, that as you're gonna see in a little bit, Cernovich himself supports. So, he's not done yet, he keeps going. The Clintons, he claims we're running a pedophile ring. It's been in the emails all of the time. We just weren't able to see the code. This is the insane Pizzagate theory. Everyone that is a political opponent of his is a pedophile, including Republicans. So we go to this tweet. This is about Ben Sasse. Ben Sasse is a Republican from Nebraska. But he had the temerity to not fully support Donald Trump. So the brown shirt that is Mike Cernovich put out this tweet. How many underage boys did you pass off to convicted pedophile and GOP leader Dennis Hastert? Now, he is right that former GOP leader Dennis Hastert was in fact a child molester. You are right about that Republican who was a child molester, but not about Ben Sasse and passing off kids to him. This guy's an absolute monster. And what does that make you, MSNBC, that you cave to a guy like that? So, and then he brags about his method of lying about people and then smearing them effectively online. So he was, another guy that he was lying about is Jesse Singal, and he says, he puts it in quotes, Jesse Singal is a sexual predator. I can get that on page 1 of Google in due time. Meaning, I'm gonna game the system. I'm gonna lie to advertisers, I'm gonna lie to investors, I'm gonna lie to executives, I'm gonna lie to companies, and I'm gonna try to game the system online that I take a political opponent and I put that on page 1 of Google. Oh, by the way, a lot of people are never going to see all other tweets I made. They're never gonna see his defense, they're just gonna see that. So with 25, 50, 75, whatever percentage of the country, I will defame all of these people to the hilt and then laugh as I get other people to do my bidding for me like MSNBC. He must be ecstatic today at how pathetic MSNBC is for doing this. So now, remember what he initially professed to care about. Oh my God, Sam Seder did a rape joke. That is unacceptable because I'm sure that Mike Cernovich cares deeply about rape and protecting women who have suffered from rape. So let's find out if that's the case. Let's go to his tweets. He says, have you guys ever tried quote unquote raping a girl without using force? Try it, it's basically impossible. Date rape does not exist. This is the guy pretending to care about rape. This is the guy that MSNBC was convinced was so righteous that they fired one of their own contributors, and not anywhere near done. Here's more. He says, and this is his words, a whore will let her friend ruin your life with a false rape case. So why should I care when women are raped? This is the guy pretending to care about a rape joke. I'm not done yet. He says he's got what he calls an anti-rape game in this next tweet. After abusing a girl, I always immediately send a text and save her reply. So after he, apparently according to him, and by the way, he can't now claim that it's a joke. First of all, does any of this sound like a joke? This guy's an absolute monster. I don't believe it, but I know what his defense is gonna be. Oh, what? I'm just joking. I mean, I admitted to sexual assault right there. And I got MSNBC to think that I care about sexual assault. After I sexually assault women, I get them to reply to me in a tweet so later I can blame them and victimize them again. If it's a joke, it's the world's worst joke and exactly what the problem is. But it isn't a joke because you see all of these patterns. Here's another one. If in case you were unclear yet, after all of this, one more tweet. When is the last time women organized to support a men's rights issue? Stop being fags. Who cares about breast cancer and rape? Not me. MSNBC, you ought to be absolutely embarrassed and ashamed of yourself. You know, how many progressives are you gonna fire because the right wing scared you a little bit? Because they said boo. All you care about is your own careers, the executives out there. I don't care what happens to progressives. Why would MSNBC care about progressives? Now they're gonna throw one after another under the bus. Oh no, Martin Bashir said the wrong thing about Sarah Palin. First you force him into apology after apology and then you fire him. And then you can go through the whole long list. Radigan, in that case there's no apologies, he didn't do anything wrong, but he did speak a truth to power. He's also now part of the TYT network. And then, Oberman had his issues over there. Ed Schultz is gone, and the list goes on and on and on and on. All those progressives, why? Because they're not progressives, they're a giant multi-billion-dollar corporation, and the only thing they care about is the career of their executives. Oh, well, I know this Cernovich is a monster, I know he's wrong about this, but what do I care? Throw another progressive onto the fire so that I don't take a 1% chance about my career, which is the only thing that the people who made this decision care about. It is gross. And finally, I need you to understand something. Sam Seder does a great show at the Majority Report, and you should go watch it over and over and over again. YouTube.com/Sam Seder gets you to the Majority Report. And we have a wide and varied network here. We've got people all over the political spectrum, and certainly on the progressive side, but all over the progressive side. And sometimes, yes, our hosts don't agree, and sometimes they share that widely. But I support them. I support their right to speech. The alt-right claims that they care about freedom of speech, and then they want somebody fired over something that they know was a joke. They don't care about freedom of speech, they're brown shirts. They never cared. When they cried all those tears about Milo and Shapiro, oh my God, they were denied their $20,000 speaking fee for not being able to speak. Well, and when they were denied that fee, who defended them? We defended them, because you do have freedom of speech in this country, but they don't believe in that. All they believe is in fascism and this kind of despicable defamation, slander, and smears. And the next time some alt-right guy like this comes to you, understand what their history is. Never, ever believe them. Because if you make the mistake of believing them, they'll then turn around and use it against you and laugh at you behind your back, which is exactly what they're doing to MSNBC today, which they thoroughly deserved. Watch the Young Turks commercial-free, download it or stream it, watch it any way you like at tytnetwork.com/join.